So for this next week, I'm going to be recording how many pages I read every day. I've got an author event for RF Kuang coming up soon. So this shelf here is my TBR shelf. I like having a specific shelf for it because it helps me realize if I'm buying too many books and not reading enough, as you can see by this stack where the books are going upwards instead of sideways anymore. As we start this video, I wanted to show you the books that I'm currently reading. I've got 3 of them here, another one there, another one down there. So of those 5 books that I'm currently reading, the first one I wanted to mention was The Poppy War by RF Kuang. I have read Yellowface by her, and I really enjoyed that book, so I'm very excited for her author event. I've heard that it's meant to be like really dark and people say they're prepared, but they're not. Even the description on the back says, I thought myself prepared. I was not. I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen in this, but everyone keeps saying it's really dark. I made something to do with war crimes. Oh, I haven't even told you what this is about. It's basically a peasant girl in. She studies really hard, gets into this academy. She's on a search for power. Everyone else in the school is pretentious. There are these different, I forget the word, but different sort of like tracks you can pledge after your first year of studying everything, and then you can become an apprentice on one of those 5 tracks. Cover is super pretty. I hope to finish this very soon. Second book I'm reading is Good Girl Bad Blood. This is the second book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I'm reading it from my library at the moment. It follows on from the events in the first book, where now Pip is running a true crime podcast. I believe there's going to be another crime that she maybe has to solve in this book. No! Oh my gosh. Next book I'm reading, I have to get out from my little pile here. And that book is The Well of Ascension by Sanderson. So this is the second book in the Mistborn trilogy. I read the first book right before starting this one. It was amazing. It's basically the best plotted story I've ever read. I'm nearly done with this one, and I think I might even be able to finish it tonight. I've only got this little bit left. Might be a bit ambitious to try and finish tonight, but we'll see how I go. I'm a bit sad by how damaged the spines are getting, but it was unavoidable, I guess. Got the same problem with the Poppy one too. So the last 2 books I'm reading are Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis and Draekora by Lynette Noni. The Screwtape Letters is a fiction book by C.S. Lewis. It's letters from a senior demon to a lower level demon who is his nephew, giving him advice about how to keep the humans in the world from faith. It's a super interesting book so far. I put off reading it for a long time because I thought it was going to be a bit intimidating, but it's actually a really good read. Very short chapters, so it's very enjoyable. C.S. Lewis is a wonderful writer at putting complicated theological discussions into simple words. And then Draekora is book 3 in the Midoran Chronicles series by Lynette Noni. I've heard that this is the best book in the series. Yeah, I'm excited to keep reading and record how many pages I read each day. Okay, Misty, what do you think of my book? What do you think? Not much? It's a good book, I'd recommend it. Despite being in the same spot as the previous clips, it is in fact a different day. I am going to do some reading now and hopefully finish, in theory, The Well of Ascension. Yeah. I'm so close to finishing this book, so I really hope that I'm going to be able to finish it tonight because I won't have any time to read tomorrow because work and other hobbies. I've only got that little bit left. I think it's about 100 pages. I think it should probably take me 2 hours, but I've only got about 1 hour. Okay, I just have to say, being where I am in this book and reading The Poppy War at the same time, and being about halfway through that, is a very interesting combination of books to be reading at the same time. I finished the book. Some of my favorite characters survived. I'll take that as a win. Don't really know how I feel about the ending. We'll see what happens in the next book, I guess. Ignore the noise in the background, that's my dog having his midday snack. So apparently my mum bought a book off of eBay. It's meant to be a signed book of Boys Willow's universe. And I think this might be it, so I'm going to open it now. I'm interested to see which cover this is. Apparently it's a first edition, and I don't know of any covers in Australia other than the like orange and pink one. She said it has a universe on it. Must say it has been packaged really well. I'm quite impressed. Okay, my guess is it's going to be the splattery looking one. Ooh, it's hardback. Yo, this is actually so pretty. I think this is the one I was low-key hoping it was, but I've never seen it in Australia. Oof, I don't even know if this is going to be an Australian edition. This seems too nice. I'm also definitely going to keep this packaging. I think we should preserve it. She bought it after watching the Netflix show and saying it was amazing. Okay, like it's not in perfect condition, so it's probably, I don't know if it's been read before, but oh my gosh, this is pretty. It's shiny. I don't think it's showing up on camera very well, but it is actually like shiny. Oh my gosh, it's got a hardback, look at that. Sorry, Australian books never have this. I'm gonna have to look into the history of this. Look at that too, oh my gosh. It gets good, always love Trent Dalton. 8,500 copies, okay. Limited gift edition, 8,500 copies of this. 2019. Okay, so it is an Australian one. This honestly feels too pretty for us to even read. Look at that. It looks so much prettier even in person. Like, that's beautiful. Wow, so nice. Okay, I'm gonna put this back inside the plastic wrap to keep it safe. Tell me in the comments if I'm overreacting. Like, I definitely believe books are made to be read, not just sort of preserved and never touched, but this is so pretty. So I am like juggling 5 books already at the moment as it is, but I do want to reread a book for a special reason, and that book is Completely Normal and Other Lies by Biffy James. If you saw my end of year wrap up, this was one of my favorite books of last year. In fact, it was my favorite young adult book of last year. It's got a heap of awards now, and I would like to do a reread. Okay, I love Brandon Sanderson, but I have to say, at the end of the last book, he used the word awesome twice, and I think in the space of 1 chapter, he's used it again twice. Come on, man. Open a thesaurus. So it is now 1 week from when I started this challenge, and I have been mood reading a lot of books. In terms of books I finished, I did finish Draekora by Lynette Noni. I think that was my favourite book in her Madoran Chronicles that I've read so far. And the second book I finished was The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. I really enjoyed this book and am now on to The Hero of Ages, which is the finale in this trilogy of books. I'm only a little way in, but I'm interested to see where the story's going. I think this trilogy has been going in a direction I wasn't entirely expecting. The events at the end of Will of Ascension, it's something I saw that could have happened. I wasn't necessarily surprised by in terms of the way the story was going, but I don't know if I'm the most engaged with where the plot might be going, but I am eager to keep reading because I do love these characters. I say that, but this is still a 5-star series. And then also during the week, I started reading Completely Normal and Other Lies by Biffy James. This is a book I read last year and it was my favourite YA book of 2023. I'm now rereading it. I've also been reading interviews with the author and I've learned that some of her inspirations or the shows that she liked growing up were things like Heathers, Buffy, Veronica Mars, and now I'm rereading that book with that knowledge in the back of my head and I'm really enjoying it even more. Then I made some progress on Good Girl Bad Blood. I'm actually really close to finishing that book, so I might be able to finish it today. And then finally we've got The Poppy War, which arguably is the most important book that I get done during this week. And I haven't completely finished reading it, but I'm hoping I'll be able to get through the rest of it in the next 2 days before the RF Kuang event. I feel like the book keeps changing in drastic ways I'm not expecting in terms of the characters we're interacting with and the settings and sort of what the plotline is. It's definitely got some dark elements, but not quite to the extent that people keep hyping it up to be. But then again, I am only on chapter like 18 or something, so there's plenty of time. And there you have it. That is how much I read in a week when I'm having a good reading week, I would say. Having this stack of books and the amount of books I've been juggling at once has definitely been a bit hectic. As you would have seen, I also ended up buying 2 books, which... Oh, hello, Misty. Yeah, that's a microphone. You know, I think she should be in video. Yeah. I think I've had a pretty good reading week. I think the way I have them piled right now actually is the order of priority. I need to finish reading The Poppy War before the RF Kuang event, so that hopefully I can take Yellowface and Poppy War to be signed. Okay, there is about 2 hours until the RF Kuang event, and I've just finished The Poppy War. Yeah, the ending is definitely dark like people said it would be. I don't know if I have as much of an attachment to the characters as I thought I would, but I am going to continue the series. Just not quite sure if I'm going to do it immediately or maybe just take like a mental health break. Not recommended for everyone.
Everything different, really. I wouldn't write sentences like, she let out a breath, she didn't know she was haunted. I get a lot of heat for that one. I don't think it's important at all that the protagonist is likable. All that matters is that they're interesting. It's actually harder to keep the reader's attention if the protagonist is too virtuous and too ethical and always does the right thing at every turn, because then they're completely predictable. On a novel about my father's experience at the Tiananmen Square massacre and then immigrating to the US after, and I thought, oh, am I just gonna write another story about how hard it was to be Chinese in the US as somebody who didn't have great English and was new and was suffering a lot of racism, and I realized no, because it's the specificity that matters. The more you tunnel into the specificity of one person's experience, actually, the more universally appealing it becomes. And what I mean by this is, I'm not interested in describing my dad's experiences with the very broad strokes of, oh, everybody was going through this. I'm interested in the particulars of things like the fact that when he landed, he had miscalculated the bus fare and thought, oh, I'm just going to take a bus from LA to San Francisco. It's going to take like 20 minutes. I'm in Australia, just so you know, it's a really long drive. I think it's very uneven, right? And this reflects the fact that there are so many people in the industry that are fighting tooth and nail to get a newer set and range of stories out there to help authors tell their stories, in many cases authors who've never had that kind of platform before. Many times it's the junior employees actually who are the most gung-ho about changing things up, but they don't have a lot of leverage. At the same time, there's some initiatives and I think a small number of cases where it's cool to see stories being celebrated that wouldn't have gotten that kind of push before. At an institutional level, I think the statistics statistics are actually worse than they were when we started having conversations about diversity in publishing. There were all sorts of initiatives for Black writers that were launched. So whole imprints were started, editors were hired, writers were recruited, and all these promises were made. People were saying, we care about Black stories, we're really going to push these narratives, and then silence, right? The following year, a lot of those books came out. They didn't get the support that was promised. They didn't perform as well as anticipated, because you can't make racism something to profit from, right? And when those books didn't hit the metrics as hoped for, then that support for Black authors completely dried up. And there have been many studies of this since. So it's this constant tension between wanting to change up the industry, to tell stories that people are hungry for, and to represent a broader range of narratives, and the very corporate interest of, it's inconvenient just to tell this small set of stories all along, so that's what we're going to keep doing.
Thank you for coming all the way to Brisbane. I was just wondering, you were mentioning earlier, particularly when writing a character like June, you put in a lot of your own personal insecurities and your own desires when it came to making her. I was wondering, in terms of writing such a character like that, how did it affect you mentally as a writer, and then how did you cope with that and deal with it?
Oh, I don't go to therapy, I just write. But what I mean by this is it's actually a nice chance for self-reflection and to learn to be comfortable with the ugliest parts of myself. So in writing June, I had to get comfortable with all of my ugliest resentments and jealousies and really annoying personality traits when I was a teenager. And this is true for all of the villains I write, even Professor Lovell and Babel, who I think is the worst person I've ever put on the page. It's important that when I'm writing somebody evil, I'm still writing from a place of love. Otherwise, they're not an interesting character. Otherwise, they're just a two-dimensional cardboard cutout who's quite predictable. But if you can find something to love about your worst character, then there's stakes involved, and there's hooks in your heart. So
Pretty I finished the Poppy War today like 2 hours ago, and I'm still reeling. How's Rebecca's butt been on that? How is your book buying ban going? I told myself I wouldn't buy any books in March, and technically I've only bought 2. This pile is a little bit of a lie. So I just got back from the event. I got the Poppy War signed. I also got an adorable bookmark. Look at this bookmark. This is amazing. Bookmarking for my future novel. Love it. I then bought the Dragon Republic and the Burning God because I didn't own them. I was only going to buy the second one and hold off on buying the third until this one was done. Save money, being smart, all that. However, as I bought this one, I did quickly ask, hey, I heard some of the books were signed. Is this one signed? I'm just curious. And she was like, yeah, it is. The entire pile is. And I was like, what? And then she looked from the pile. She looked at me. She looked back at the pile. She looked at me. She was like, do you want the third book as well? It's also signed. And I was like, well, guess I have to. Now I have a lot of signed RF Kuang books. And then of course I got Yellowface signed. Didn't really get to talk to Rebecca, which is completely understandable. It was very much like, this is a signing. This is not a conversation. This is a signing. She had such a long queue. It was hectic, but I strategically was able to be near the start of the queue. My plans worked, and I was probably the 8th person out of 100 and who knows how many. Oh my gosh, hello Misty. Hello. And then Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, I'm borrowing these. So I didn't buy these. Brought home 6 books tonight.